Hello everybody, and this is me again, Penguin21 today. Oh boy, we're going to be talking a little bit about Harman Smith today. Now, I'm going to be talking about more than just the video here, so we're going to take a little bit of time to go about just over the history of Harman Smith, as well as just some of the little stories that I think deserve their own videos, but again, fell so far by the wayside that, like, right now, just me talking about them is enough, in my personal opinion. It's not going to be a hugely long video. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible, because today we're talking about Elden Ring Nightingale, the little beef that happened between Harman Smith and ReviewTech USA, which was a thing, apparently, as well as a couple of little things here. I'm also going to be teasing another video down the line, where apparently Harman Smith has, well, switched to PC, even though that's not the case at all. So yeah, that's going to be more of a trailer for the next Harman video, whenever I get around to making that. But overall, let's just, I guess, start off with this stuff here. Again, if you like what it is I do, want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, other than like and subscribe, which is always enough, links down to everything in the description below. So, about sometime during the second half of May, I'll just explain that here, he and ReviewTech USA, that is Harman Smith and ReviewTech USA, got into a little bit of a beef on Twitter. And this did end up resulting in a couple of videos from Harman, but we'll take a look at the Rich's tweets, and then we'll take a look at Harman's, like, videos. We'll just look at the titles, because we don't have time to actually go over the full videos here, as the full context kind of requires a bit more explanation here. But the basics of this is that Rich Tomorrow, or the real RTU, on Twitter basically said that at Harman64, I will buy you a copy of Elden Ring for PC if you play it on live streams, and I know you live stream it, so you can definitely do it, let me know. And without realizing it, then literally the next day, Harman found that tweet and basically said that he already owns the copy of the game, which he actually does. And if you didn't know that he did actually do that live stream, he does. He did play, I think, Elden Ring a couple times on live stream, just to, like, prove a point and prove how bad it was. I know that Gar of the Rage actually ended up talking about this, which again, Rich does bring up the Harman Smith interesting Elden Ring thing video from, like, I think it was last year. I don't remember specifically, but Harman Smith did end up, like, talking about how, oh yeah, this game is bad and blah blah blah. But of course, this did inevitably lead to a couple of videos here from Harman Smith, because Harman Smith, if you'll realize here during this just screenshot, this isn't me just even cherry picking some of these screenshots here. You'll notice in terms of how his upload schedule is, all of these videos up until, like, a couple of these, some of these videos are uploaded within the same hour of each other, literally just him doing literally nothing and just pumping out video after video after video. And it is kind of ridiculous how 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 videos were uploaded in the span of a day, and even then, the next day was just 3 videos, with 2 of them uploaded within the same hour of each other, which is a little bit ridiculous, and why covering Harman Smith in terms of, like notions is very freaking hard sometimes. And then you can also see in this next screenshot here, I don't know when this one was taken, but this one was taken for another video as well. You also notice in the top corner for one of the most recent ones there that he was switching to PC gaming. That's the one that I'm teasing for next time, but we're just going to move on past that. But of course, there's also this other one where you might notice a word or two in there that are a little bit of a, so we're not going to put that on screen for too long. But overall, yeah, the reason why covering Harman Smith does get a little bit dubious and a little bit anger-inducing is because of how many videos the dude uploads sometimes in a single day. I am surprised at how many videos he's able to fucking pump out. How has he not been called a content farm yet, or whatever? He's literally just a lulled cow content farm type thing, which is a little bit sad considering that I know a little bit of his history and watched some of his oldest video where it's like, yeah, he did actually have some good points, but what the hell happened between then and now? It's very strange. Overall, this grown man here is about to yell at us about video games that he has never decided to play at all. So, with that being said, grab some popcorn, and again, if you like what it is I do and want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, other than like and subscribe, always enough. Like to hit 1.5K. Let's get into the actual video now.
So you pay off Jeff Keighley for a Game of the Year award. You pretend that your game sold 30 million units. You gaslight people into believing that Elden Ring is one of the biggest releases of the generation. And what do? You immediately turn around and turn it into Fortnite. You know, this must have always been the long-term plan because I can't imagine that Miyazaki actually really thought that Elden Ring would have succeeded long-term. Because I pointed this out when the game first came out, is that, like, this is just Dark Souls again. It's just open world. It's going to wear off eventually. You know, what's the long-term plan for this brand? Okay, what are they going to do with it? And they literally...
I mean, they did make a spin-off game, and they're looking to, do it as an experiment and probably learn to make their next game, which is making the one for the Nintendo Switch, which I don't think that that's a good idea to make it a Switch exclusive, but at the same time, like, it's just a thing that happens, and unfortunately it's happened before with From Software. They've had Bloodborne, and it is annoying and stupid and dumb, and I just kind of wish that they didn't, but c'est la vie. Overall, they said that, like, they made it into Fortnite. They turned Elden Ring into a kind of battle royale type thing, and while yes, Fortnite is a battle royale, it's not the same thing as Elden Ring Fortnite battle royale. That's not the same thing. It might be in the same genre, certainly, but in order to copy Fortnite 1-to-1, you have to copy a lot of the same mechanics, which Elden Ring does not do. It literally just puts Elden Ring, like, gameplay into a sort of multiplayer type stuff. It's very strange to me, then, that the entirety of this seems to just be not well thought out at all. Yes, we turned it into Fortnite. How? Like, it makes no sense. It just became like an extraction Elden Ring game, or a battle royale extraction Elden Ring type game. I don't know, dude. Like, I've not played the game enough. I've only really seen gameplay of it. But from what I can tell, it's definitely not fucking Fortnite. Like, what the heck? And also the long-term thing of the brands? That's a good question, actually.
Literally just turned it into Fortnite. They literally were just like, well, we gotta do what Fortnite does. And yeah, FromSlop, the company that is only famous for being so dead set against, like, industry trends and, like, just the general gameplay design, they made their game into Fortnite. And right now...
They didn't, but I do think that is actually an interesting thing, though. They were usually against a lot of the industry trends, really, which is an interesting point to be correct in Harman's favor, oddly enough. But yeah, they were usually against these sorts of like, following the industry trends. But I think they've realized that even they can't actually forego a lot of that stuff to begin with. Because, well, yes, Elden Ring itself was a massive success. They haven't had a massive success like this to try to expand or to try to make the money to sustain some of their stuff. And they've realized, like, they might need smaller projects to try to keep the audience, now that they have grown, with the use of the Elden Ring itself. Because, again, Elden Ring took, several years to make, and again, they didn't even know if it was going to be profitable or not, and when it was, they're like, okay, cool, maybe we can try to get a little bit more experimental. They've done this before. They started with the Dark Souls one, and they did Dark Souls 2, which sold even better, but then Dark Souls 3 kind of dipped into the thing, and then they just started trying to make Elden Ring, and blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. You know the story here. I think it's more of a business decision in the sense of they want to make more money to try to fund their, like, passion projects, and they've realized, like, making these huge, bombastic, and big games isn't always going to be the best, so they're trying to make these smaller, more bite-sized, or more industry trend kind of following ways, but in their own spin on things. So, again, it's not the same thing. It's strategic decision after strategic decision, but to try to understand what other people think, especially Miyazaki himself, is trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's possible, but you're only really grasping at hay at that point. That analogy kind of broke down. Anyway.
Now, it's kind of like a repeat of what happened with Shadow of the Erdtree, where shit stain on the turd tree, excuse me. It's kind of there. It's kind of the same situation, what we're seeing right now, where
Do you like how he actually had to take a pause there to really kind of think it through? And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's the same thing because of You could hear the hamster just turning and the cymbal clapping monkey just being like, you know what I mean?
from Slot, fanboys are just guzzling down like Nightrain, not willing to acknowledge the game's very obvious problems and the flaws, right? People are a bit more willing to accept that, like, yeah, this isn't the genre I wanted. Nobody cares about the multiplayer with Elden Ring. That was actually, like, a really good sign that, like, Elden Ring was kind of underwhelming, by the way, is the fact that, like, nobody cares about the multiplayer in this. But, no.
Nobody cares about the multiplayer, therefore it is quote unquote underwhelming because no one liked the one small aspect for it. As a fun aside, by the way, I never really even used the multiplayer that much either. I think I might have used it like once to try to get with a friend to do a thing or something. I don't remember. I think that we did it for something else. But I mostly played that thing single player, and I had a freaking blast of over 100 hours. So yeah, not liking every aspect of a specific game is not impossible, and it's not a bad thing. It happens. It happens a lot, where you just don't like specific games. And yes, I do think that people are being a little bit less harsh on that because, again, it is an established studio and they do realize, like, oh yeah, this isn't their normal genre. So yes, they do get a little bit of a pass there. They, however, do not get a pass for a lot of the blatant stuff that they've had here. It's a mostly stable game, though, as far as people can tell. It's just that the online functionalities aren't the greatest. So I'm assuming this is supposed to be some sort of, like, water testing facility similar to how they're doing it for their next game, which is, again, for the one for the Switch 2. So I think it might be a learning lesson from that to kind of start here and then improve it for the next game, which is usually what they do dependent on X, Y, and Z.
Nobody likes the multiplayer in Souls games, okay? It's just a thing for tryhards to, like, get one up over noobs, but it doesn't really add anything to the game. It detracts from the core experience. Nobody likes it. And FromSlop, in their infinite wisdom, was just like, oh, we're going to make an entire IP based on the concept. It's like, let's make a multiplayer Souls game. Never mind that, like, the movesets of these bosses are so limited that, like, having someone else with you completely breaks the game. Never mind that, like, the Elden Ring lore isn't fleshed out enough or interesting enough to make a multiplayer game interesting, and so they had to bring in, like, characters from Dark Souls to get anybody remotely interested in what was happening. Never mind that, like, if the world of Elden Ring was Fortnite, like, why didn't we just Fortnite it to begin with? It's just like, what?
I mean, if you don't know the lore about Dark Souls and Elden Ring and all of the Souls genre and how they're connected in ways and shapes and form, don't fucking speak on it. And don't say, like, oh, I know everything and therefore I just do it. You played it for about, like, 3 hours, as far as I could tell, and no. Again, the basic premise, I'm thinking, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong here, but I'm thinking that the basic premise of, say, Elden Ring and Elden Ring Nightingale and even the Soul genre is that each of these is worlds onto themselves, in the sense of, like, it's the multiverse theory, right? Where Elden Ring and Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree and Elden Ring Nightingale are all kind of taking place within the same realm of some kind, but they are different timelines that split off from that singular realm into different things. That's why you can have different endings. That's why you can have, like, repurposing of this and that and the other thing. And it all just, it depends, and it's different, and it's weird. But again, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. So,
this is what they came up with. This is what they produced. And what's more, they made it pretty clear with Duskbloods, the announcement of their next big project, exclusively on the Nintendo Switch platform, the superior gaming platform, the market leader.
You can hear the erection when he said exclusively.
When they announced their bigger project, their next big step after Elden Ring, they made it very clear that they're going to double down on what they're doing with Nightrain. This multiplayer choose your character slop. Something that nobody in the audience asked for, nobody wanted, and is becoming very, very apparent is a massive, massive misstep. From Slop fans are autistic. That's the reality of it. The reason why they're so obsessed with this brand is because they developed like this specific fixation on this idea that like ducking and rolling was like peak gameplay design, right? They think Souls is way harder than it actually.
I don't think that that's the case. I think that more of the case in the way of it's a very big and punishing game, and the rewards for overcoming that challenge that you set out for yourself are amazing and can give you the greatest high that you've ever had that no drug can give you, but that's just from my own personal experience here. So I don't speak really for anyone else. I do find it, again, weird how they're doing two of these games back to back about like doing an online focused game. I think that again they're doing this as more of a way to try to get more audience or to try to appeal to the more casual stuff to then try to make their game to try to make their bigger games better, as in like the way that I think about this is that these games are smaller projects, smaller development processes to try to keep the knife sharp, as it were, in order to then make the bigger and better games to try and get it in. Because again, game creation has become more expensive, and I think that with the creation and the release of Elden Ring, they might have realized that they can't sustain their company unless they have like smaller projects that can be made quicker and that can be made with more efficiency to try to make them extra money to then put forward towards the next bigger projects, which is a good way to do it. Like again, if you have a big gaming company, if you had like a gaming company at all, let's just say you have a medium-sized one at 100 people, I would personally say you have a small subset of people making smaller games, but then they can have people working on bigger games that are like the big tentpole releases that come out like every 2 to 3 years. But then you have like the people that are making the smaller games working at those same pace, where they be able to release like smaller bite-sized games to try to bring in a little bit of extra money to try to keep the funding of those games going forward towards the bigger games. Again, it's kind of like you have the smaller games that bring in the audience to sustain the interest in the brand, but then you have the bigger games that come out that are the massive, extreme, huge games with the big budgets, but they are meant to kind of, not be the normal where you release those kinds of big budget, extreme games every year, which is what specific companies try to do. So, again, I see this more as a stepping stone, but that's just how I view this. So
Actually is, and that they're good gamers because they can breeze through it in like an hour, right? That's the mindset of like the average like Souls like Spurg, right?
I don't think I've ever heard of a person beating Elden Ring glitchless, by the way, within an hour. I think you can beat it within an hour with like glitches and stuff, sure, but not without that. Not without that. If you do it like verbatim, even just the travel time alone probably could take you like 2 to 3 hours to get to different bosses. So it really depends on who does it. So.
From Slop, like producing games in different genres that require a more diverse skill set that are nothing like the games that like people claim are like peak. This is alienating their core audience. We are beginning to see the backlash to From Slop being overhyped among the general community. They are trying to like pull in more normies, getting more casuals, and it's just alienating the people who like genuinely love From Slop for what it is. What From Slop should have done.
I mean, I guess. In some cases, maybe. In other cases, maybe not. It really depends on who you ask. Overall, I don't think that it's alienating as many people as Harman Smith is specifically saying in this video, and I think we're going to probably end it there because usually by the halfway point and onward, he then just starts repeating himself, so overall, that seems to be his main point. that, oh yeah, this whole thing is just this, that, and the other thing, and it blah, blah, blah. I honestly am just surprised that he hasn't said, oh yeah, their new blood whatever that's coming out on this is going to be far superior than the Elden Ring Nightingale thing, because it's going to be far better and on the most superior stuff. I'm surprised he's not sucking that game off because it's a Nintendo Switch exclusive. But regardless, or whatever the fuck, I don't think it's alienating to the entire audience. I do think that they are trying to bring in like a bigger audience to try to sustain their game development long term, in the sense of, again, like I said before, these are smaller projects that were made by like subsets of the teams that they might have had, or had some of this other stuff. Those smaller subsets of the teams probably were working on these for a while, but we needed to produce those smaller games in order to then produce more money to make those larger games. I think that they realized that releasing things like the Dark Souls stuff and releasing things like Elden Ring that might have been very stressful in a team, and these next couple of games are going to be like the de-stress types of games that are smaller, easier to produce, quicker to like see the results of like your work going out into the public like that. I do think that that's a good way of doing it. And again, I'm gonna just stop it right there. There's still like over half of this video left, but I don't really care. I think that again, he usually just starts repeating himself at this point, so we don't really need to see much more of this. Overall, that's been the entirety of the Harman Smith genre stuff that I wanted to cover so far. Apart from that, why I switched to PC, which, to be quite honest, I'm probably going to cover that maybe towards the end of the month. Or maybe into next month if I run out of stories this week. But overall, that's all I have to say on today's thing. Next episode of I Rant Into This Microphone, I'm probably going to talk about Stellar Blade and the PC port, and how the people are going to be reacting to that. So, with that being said, my name is GamePango21. If you like what it is I do, want to support me in any other way, shape, or form other than like and subscribe, and always enough, links down to everything in the description below. I'm looking to hit 1.5k subscribers, so please like, comment, favorite, and subscribe, because I want to hit that by the end of the year. We seem to maybe be on track for that, but I don't know. I've been stuck at 1.3k for a while, so we'll just have to see. In any case, I think I'm done ranting into this microphone. It's starting to smell like a lot of gamer subs down here, so that being said, thank you so much for watching, and a peace.
Can I get a favor?